Okay. Well, good evening. This is Space News Weekly, brought to you at People's Internet Radio, at Watchers Talk, at Rise University, and Holy Conservancy each Friday evening. I'm Emily Cragg, and this is our first report, the first week of February 2019, Volume 1, Number 1. And the reason we're doing this is because history's dots need to be connected in a more holistic manner. This is exopolitics, and this report is taken from published and unpublished testimony and reports and personal sources. We're talking about the layer of leadership that is over international diplomacy at the ET treaty and ET phenomena levels. Later on, I'll provide you with links to some of the affiliated newscasters who talks about how these doctrines and beliefs and policies and identity politics work out in terms of news wherever we are. Okay, now, over the last 25 years, I have been combing the internet just to find out, please tell me what's going on, world. And so much missing information has finally come to light that we can begin to say that we're aware and we're informed. The first item on the agenda for a newscast is to ask, who's here with us anyway? Who is our neighbor in the sense of the diversity that we have here in terms of race, culture, society, and technology? And who's not here that ought to be here? Who's missing? Well, tonight's program will look at some of the reasons why some are here that we don't know about and some are gone that we don't know about. We're talking about treaties that have been forged by our leadership, by factions, and the ETs have factions just as we do. Their factions originate with similar ethos, similar ideology, and their ethos affects their behavior just as our ethics affects our behavior. And so a lot of questions are seeking answers. For instance, contracts. To what extent in the galaxy are contracts enforceable? And where do rights, where does the whole idea of rights exist? In our world, we have the reds and the blues and the conservatives and the liberals and the independents and so forth. And they are set against each other and separated so that national consensus or even local consensus is very hard to reach. The universal hierarchy is no different at all. Leaders of Earth have been led to conform to ET treaties wrought in this sector where two galaxies intersect, Orion and Sagittarius. Our first slide. Since 450,000 BC, the Anunnaki's mobile and commercial planet Nibiru has been cycling back and forth between Orion and Sagittarius in order to obtain gold here. All right, in our first slide, the Earth is on the blue horizontal line, and we're saying here that the universe is moving around us just for the sake of clarity, all right? So the Earth is on the solid blue line going across the screen in 25,772 years for the precession of the equinoxes for the galactic year to complete. And the vertical line is the short trip that Nibiru takes 7 times during that galactic year, back and forth between Sagittarius and Orion. It comes here every 3,657 years. Now, why have they been coming here all this time? Because they're interested in gold mining. It has been a big business here since Genesis 1:1, when Earth was Terra, also known as Tiamat. And Tiamat got in a collision with Nibiru, and this is part of the Sumerian cuneiform tablets that Sitchin has translated. And after the collision of Terra with Nibiru, the restoration of the planet in Genesis 1:1, you see how it had to be rebuilt. Gold was used in the foundation pillars to stabilize 4 corner land masses as a single toroid-shaped mass, which became half submerged in a sea of oceans, which is what we have now. With the dome covering over the atmosphere, about 78 miles in radius from the North Pole opening, appearing from a distance, Earth looks like a sphere, sitting on a sheet of ice and water, having flat horizons and ice walls that serve as the container for its oceans. Now, this description of Earth's present body is yet to be empirically verified by ideologically dominated academia and mainstream journalism. But there is a lot of ferment going on about it. And many people insist that we, the people, have never been told the truth about the geography of our planet and about many other things also. The raging flat Earth versus sphere Earth controversy is just an opportunity for the divide and conquer strategy of jinns and archons to keep stirring the pot of discontent and disbelief. And galactic authority looks away, and that's part of the politics of galactic authority. Long before Earth was inhabited, the Lyran system and its civilization was reduced to ashes by predators and parasite races, the reptiles and the bugs. Lyra was comprised of highly evolved, gentle, and civil people who were no match for the interests of Alpha Draconi and the domain. Next slide, please. Okay. We've known about the Anunnaki all along, what leadership would tell us. But what we didn't know was about the domain and its interests as a faction in our world. Meet Ariel, who crashed in New Mexico in 1947 and was retrieved and detained, the only survivor in the Roswell crash. Ariel's background is noted in the Urantia book. In their interviews, she related having been in India right after the flood, about 10,000 BC, and that an entire starship crew of several thousand souls was lost there in our 1200s, okay? Now, these were powerful souls, and they infiltrated human Homo sapiens and took up leadership positions in the 2 galactic factions existing at the time. Now, at the time, we old Homo sapiens, humans ordinaire, okay, were dealing with the large Tartarian empire composed of double-headed eagle, double-thinking, worshippers of Baal and Moloch versus the ancient Mosaic law and common law and the sense that humans have a right to a free mind and they have a right to self-determine their own future. Whereas in the Baal and Moloch societies, they're very focused on conformity of thinking. And so they dispense with dissidents and extra unwanted people by sacrificing them. Whereas in the Mosaic law and in the covenants that came out of that, people were believed, they earned the right to have a free mind and the opportunity to express their own life and their own preferences. Now, Ariel herself, who's androgynous and neither male nor female, was an angel known in Scripture as one of Yahweh's angels among the 7 orders of angels, a seraph. So Ariel, what is an interdimensional, who was an angel at one time and has adopted a position in what is called the domain, which is another political faction that is neither following the satanic worship of Baal nor the Luciferian model of Moloch, nor the teachings of King Nanar, who tended to be more passive in the Anunnaki pantheon of kings and gods. Ariel's testimony is found in a copy, a printing of that testimony in a book, Domain Against Order, Prison Planet Earth, that I have published at Amazon.com so that you can see the transcript for yourselves. It's a very enlightening book, and it describes and explains why the crazy making and why the stupefaction and why we're being dumbed down, which neither the Moloch group or the Baal group ever go into. Next slide, please. In Ariel's interview, she notes matter of fact that this world is being allowed to become a prison planet so that at some future time, the domain can take it over, as they took over Lyra after the Lyran Wars, defeated the sovereign peoples of Lyra. Now, I don't know if you've heard Alex Collier's testimony of Andromedan history, but their planet also was overtaken by reptilians and bugs. And they, the Andromedans, must adapt to the role of perennial visitors wherever they happen to go, because they don't have a planet anymore. Lyrans who came here have experienced reset after reset, and their bloodline soul group is now migrating to outer space beyond the ice walls. This is why, caused by, Scandinavian Siberian birth rates are plummeting, but that's another story we'll get into. So the bugs and the reptilians are being allowed to take this world down also. Cliff High from halfpasthuman.com talks about this struggle against free minds here in our world. And his discussion of this problem follows in the links at the end of this presentation. And he goes a lot into the strategies and tactics we need to adopt in order to resist and turn aside the mind controls and chemical and electronic threats that are being directed at us. Okay, so that is faction one. The domain which has allowed the archons and the jinn to literally drive us crazy with their disruptive divide and conquer strategies. Okay, next, the next slide, please. Okay, the next matter has to do with disappearances. Who's missing? Who ought to be here? This map has been developed by David Paulides, who's a former police homicide detective. And every year he gives out a new report on the number of people who are counted as missing across the country. He has figured out that of the nearly 1 million missing people in the USA each year, all but about 40 to 45,000 are recovered, okay? So that's how many people simply vanish without a trace each year in the United States. But why would people possibly disappear? Well, David Paulides tracks what happens in national and nature parks, that people are disappearing on their vacations, and those are the ones that he has largely tracked. But let's go back to the treaties and find out why people are disappearing out of parks. Remember William Cooper in Behold a Pale Horse? He reported that the Greada Treaty, which President Eisenhower signed in 1954, was based on the notion of a previous treaty, the 1213 Verona Treaty, in which the concept of human was listed as chattel owned by its leadership, namely the Pope. Since the Verona Treaty, humankind has been considered by maritime admiralty law as something of a consumable product, okay? So that in the Greada Treaty, which Eisenhower signed in 1954, abductions were allowed by ET groups under treaty law. And neither the Townine Treaty nor the TPP negotiations cite any human rights against the practice of human trafficking. And so what this means is, if you get abducted, too bad. I mean, that's it. You're abducted. From the El-Anu Treaty, wrought after the Lyran Wars, and from the platform, limited sovereignty versus separated cultures, who you get abducted by is going to make an enormous difference in the quality of your life. Now, the El-Anu Treaty was agreed to by both galactic factions. The Anu Elohim, which were fundamentally Anunnaki with Enki as the leader, and the Christos founders. And this history of the Anunnaki versus the Christos founders is found in Ashiana Dean's Voyager series. And I'll be referring to some pretty heavy books here if you really want to trace and track what has happened to our world in terms of human slavery. Now, the Anu Elohim, represented by the Anunnaki Enki, have formed an alliance of Pacific and sovereign races with the Pleiades, the Andromedans, and so forth, to try to rescue and salvage souls for galactic service. The Anu Elohim allow for free will and free agency. Sovereign races teach consent and behavior as indicators of compliance with the civil principle of one's always having only limited dominion. There's no just free will. Reporters on the Anu Elohim Alliance include David Wilcock and Ben Fulford. On the other hand, the Christos founders, who were originally led by the Anunnaki Prince Enlil, being separatists, embrace thought controls and sacrifice dissenters as the method of achieving unity. They don't do it just to be cruel, they don't do it just to be violent, but that's how they achieve unity, is by taking out whistleblowers and offing people who disrupt the status quo. Does that sound familiar? Well, yes, indeed. Now, the Christos founders have as their primary sects the Baal sect and the Moloch sect, in which they personify an ethos in thought groups divided by identity. Division and war after the issue of ideology is the outcome. They are warring. The specialness of prophecy and godly devotion is their presumed product, but they actually produce wars. They teach beliefs as indicators of compliance, and they capture and move intellectuals by peer pressure or blackmail in order to modify, minimize, and constrict the knowledge that's available. Keeping secrets is part of being more special. Ideologies and their hierarchies insist they are more correct than other people whom they wish to eradicate in their identity wars. Isms against isms. So now you see that the Anunnaki have a warring faction and they have a peacekeeping faction. And at the galaxy itself, they've been allowing and pandering to the warring faction for a long time. Archons, jinn, and occulted societies drive fearful individual souls into affiliating with treachery, tyranny, and violence, and they usually do that by sexual honey traps or fraud. Is that familiar? Yes. And that's why we have to be vigilant and pay attention to what's happening. Even so, the Anu Elohim alliance with Enki, the Anunnaki prince, appeals out of human decency and love for life that humans would become aware and take down the criminal elements and corrupt mafia, even while the people continue to disappear. How are the people disappearing? Well, there are the summer fires that have been shown to be set by scalar weapons, and the displaced are given the opportunity to shelter in FEMA camps. Did you know that? Yes, in fact, the deadline for applying for a place in a FEMA camp shelter, if you are a displaced person who lost your home in fire, is February 15th, in case you didn't know that. There are thousands of homeless people and families wandering the streets, and they are given the experience of detention and sheltering in FEMA camps. There are migrants, undocumented, located and detained, who are sheltered in FEMA camps. But then what happens? Where do they go after that? There are 600 or 800 U.S. FEMA camps. There are tens of thousands of loose migrants, homeless and fire-displaced people, flood-displaced people, a total of hundreds of thousands of people who have no place to go right now that's safe. Well, in your neighborhood, have any FEMA camp former detainees arrived and been resettled in your neighborhood? Not here. Where'd they go? Next slide, please. Let's put that question aside for 1 minute and bring a perspective to it. Now, we know Nibiru entered our space around 2011, and in 2013, its ice wake raked their planet and obliterated its outer dark matter layers. And that's what it looked like 10 years ago. But since then, Nibiru has been hiding behind our sun. Sometimes if you take a sky image and add black light or night shot colors to it, you can see its curvature. Next slide, please. All right, this is a picture that was taken in England, and by adding black light, you can see the curvature of the surface of a huge sphere, okay? So some of us have become sky watchers, and we watch what the observatories watch at allskycam.com. Next slide, please. Since 2013, some of us have been watching the skies over observatories. And what do we see? We see solid, cloaked in colors, physical bodies, either round metallic or irregularly shaped objects upon which there are ramps, paths, entrances for ingress and egress. Usually they are accompanied by human figures. Dozens of these. On any day, I can go to All Sky Cams and I can pick out 4 to 6 all sky pictures that have these solid objects sitting over them. Now, what are these solid objects doing up there over the observatories? Are these mobilized arcs where people are being led or teleported to leave us by FEMA? Is there a treaty or a deal in which FEMA facilities facilitate an emigration of humans off planet? Is this where the displaced people are going? Next slide, please. We might also attribute disappearances to a Mandela effect, or to raptures, or ascensions. But those experiences are not physical, so they cannot be documented, or can they? Here's what ascension or rapture looks like, which we call a Mandela effect. Okay. The Christos founders, ETs, keep secrets from the people whom they wish to dominate. The Anu Elohim Alliance are more open to disclosure. Next slide, please. Okay, but the Pentagon, run by ideology and identity politics, isn't having it. The Venusian, by the name of Val Valorian, who served in the White House from 1954 to 1959, was never introduced to the public. Now, we know secrets are kept and ETs are not allowed to be seen or named, nor are giants allowed to be seen or named, or even Bigfoot. In the first place, Bigfoot are classified as giants because they range in height between 6 to 9 feet tall. They are hidden from us, and the Smithsonian Institution destroys evidence of their presence. Next slide, please. This Anunnaki royalist is between 12 and 15 feet tall. We think his name is Anu, he's Anunnaki, and he showed up in a sarcophagus in a stasis condition in Iran in 2008. Now, we are not given to know whether he was actually revived, whether he was detained, whether he was returned to Nibiru, or whether he is at some military base being hidden away. We, the people, are not allowed to know what comes of the giants that we encounter. Okay, that same year in Kandahar, Afghanistan, the U.S. Army confronted a 12-foot hostile giant whom they took out. And again, there was no public explanation or public knowledge that this had occurred. And today, if you browse the YouTube channels, you will find reports that state at Patagonia, giant Nephilim are believed to be living and working. So we, the people, being lawful chattel, do not receive information or news about who's here with us. We are not told the implications of treaties our leaders have contracted to and obligated us to. We are not told our true history or geography or reasons why slavery is lawful here. And so this is bringing us up to date our first News Weekly segment this week of February 2019. And as a member of Omniversity, you can download a transcript document of this report. Our next report next week will be looking into what can be known and gleaned and inferred from the products of NASA and space imagery that we have available to us speaking in English language. And that's our report for tonight, February 5th, 2019. This has been Emily Cragg, and your comments and feedback are welcome. Thank you. Good night.